everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today on budgeting and specifically for MSPs.
That's right.
And we're lucky enough to be working with some material from one and only
Bela.
Tony Bela,
Yeah.
a finance expert extraordinaire.
He's got so much experience being a CFO and a COO.
Yeah, he's been in the trenches.
He really has. And he has a couple of sayings that that kind of hit home for me when it comes to budgeting.
Oh, yeah?
One of them is, if you don't know where you're going, every road will lead you there.
Ooh, I like that one.
Right. And the other one is, if you can't measure it, you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't effectively change it.
Tony's good at these little aphorisms.
He is. They're good.
Pithy.
Yeah.
They make you think.
Yeah. So why don't you tell me what Tony's definition of a budget is?
Sure. Tony's definition of a budget is a financial roadmap that outlines anticipated revenues and expenses, typically over a year. Okay, so when you think about it that way, it sounds a little bit less like a chore and more like a way to empower yourself.
It is. It's not just a boring spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It is a tool
Yeah.
that you can use to manage your business successfully.
So why does he think that budgeting is so important, especially for MSPs?
Sure. Well, he lays out a couple of key benefits. Number one is improved financial control,
Oh, yeah.
so that you can have more peace of mind.
Yeah.
You know where your cash is going. You're making informed decisions.
I know where every dollar is going and why.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And number two is cost management and avoiding overspending. So budgeting helps you to identify areas where you can cut costs.
Makes sense.
You know, make strategic decisions about your spending.
Yeah.
So that you can avoid those nasty surprises.
Yeah.
You know, the overspending,
All right.
running out of money before the end of the month, that kind of thing.
So it sounds like it's all about being really intentional and having a plan.
It is. It's all about being strategic with your resources.
Yeah. So tell me about, you know how he suggests people actually go about creating a budget? Is there a specific approach that he recommends?
Sure. Tony actually uses kind of a hybrid approach.
Okay.
He uses a combination of top-down and bottom-up budgeting.
And so what is the difference?
Okay. Top-down budgeting is where senior management sets the budget targets,
Right.
and then those targets are cascaded down to the different departments. The advantage of this is that it's typically faster,
Okay.
and it can be easier to align with the overall business strategy. However,
Let's see, however.
it can sometimes create a disconnect between management and the employees who are actually doing the work.
Yeah.
If people feel like the budget's being imposed upon them, they're not going to be as engaged in it.
Yeah.
Then you have bottom-up budgeting, which is more collaborative. You involve the different departments in the budget creation process. And the advantage of this is that it can lead to more accurate budgets because the people who are closest to the work have a better understanding of what's needed.
Right.
And it can also improve morale because people feel like they have more of a say in how the money is spent.
But I imagine that that could also be more time-consuming.
Yeah. And also more chaotic.
Yeah. So it sounds like Tony has a really good idea using the hybrid approach.
Yeah.
So what is that first step?
Well, the first step is to identify all your key departments and then gather all the necessary information from those departments.
Okay. So what kind of information are we talking about?
Things like their projected expenses,
Okay.
their revenue projections,
Got it.
any capital expenditures that they're planning,
Makes sense.
any new hires.
So you kind of get all the ingredients on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you've got all this information, what's next? What do you do with it?
Well, next you need to look at your revenue streams.
Okay.
As an MSP,
Yeah.
you have a few different revenue streams.
What are those?
Number one, recurring monthly revenue.
Okay, so that's like the bread and butter.
That's your predictable revenue.
Yep.
Then you have revenue from one-time projects.
Okay.
And then you have revenue from hardware and software sales.
Right.
So each of these revenue streams needs to be considered separately in your budget.
Yeah, because they're all a little bit different.
Right.
Some are more predictable than others.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so once you've got your revenue figured out, then what?
Well, then you need to look at your expenses.
Makes sense. So what kind of expenses should we be considering?
Well, the first thing to look at is your cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It refers to the direct costs associated with producing and delivering your services.
Okay, so for recurring revenue, that could include things like hosting fees, vendor costs.
Exactly. And then for projects, you know, you might have third-party labor costs, specialized equipment, that kind of thing.
Makes sense. Okay, so once you've got your revenue and your expenses all laid out, what's the next step in Tony's process?
Well, the next step is what he calls consolidation and review. So you're bringing everything together, you're making sure it's all accurate, that it's all feasible, that it's profitable.
Like that puzzle, right?
Right, you got to make sure all the pieces fit together.
Yeah.
And that your budget aligns with both your top-down goals from management
Yeah.
and the bottom-up input that you got from the department.
So it's kind of like a balancing act.
It is.
Yeah.
You got to find that sweet spot.
Okay, so once you've got your consolidated budget all finalized, is that it? Are you done?
No, that's not it.
Okay.
The next step is to monitor your actuals against the budget.
Okay, so this is all about tracking your progress and making sure you're on track.
It is.
Right.
You need to compare your actual results to your budget on a regular basis.
Yeah.
To see where you're overspending or underspending, and then you need to make adjustments as needed.
So how often do you recommend doing that?
I recommend doing it at least monthly,
Okay.
but quarterly is also fine.
Yeah.
It's just important to do it regularly.
To stay on top of it.
Right. You
Yeah.
got to measure, you
Yeah.
got to control, you got to change.
I love it. It's like a financial checkup.
It is.
Yeah, for your business.
Yeah.
So Tony has some best practices that he likes to share.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Can you tell me about some of those?
Number one, regular review and adjustment.
Okay.
Your budget's not a static document.
Right.
It's a living document.
Got it.
You need to review it and adjust it regularly.
Okay.
You know, as your business changes, as the market changes,
Uh-huh.
you need to make sure your budget is still relevant.
That makes sense.
Okay.
What else? Number 2,
Mm.
a collaborative budgeting process.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Involve the key stakeholders.
Get buy-in from the team.
Yeah,
Make sure everybody's on the same page.
absolutely. Okay, so what's the third one?
Number 3, contingency planning.
Oh, yeah,
Always plan for the unexpected.
always.
You know stuff happens.
Yeah,
Things go wrong.
right.
You need to have a little bit of cushion in your budget
Yeah,
to cover those unforeseen expenses.
yeah, for sure. I'm all about contingency planning. What's the fourth one?
Number 4, benchmarking and performance metrics.
Oh, yeah,
It's not enough to just create a budget.
right.
You also need to track your progress and measure your performance against that budget.
Okay.
So you know what's working and what's not working.
So it's about using data to make informed decisions.
Exactly. Data-driven decision-making.
Love it. Okay, what's number 5?
Number 5, training and education.
Okay.
Budgeting is a complex process,
It is.
and it's constantly evolving. So
Right.
you need to make sure that you and your team
Yeah.
are up to date
Yeah.
on the latest best practices and techniques.
Makes sense. All right. So those are Tony's 5 best practices for budgeting.
This is a lot of good information. So we've learned a lot about Tony's approach to budgeting. But before we move on, I want to know what stands out to you as the most important takeaway.
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that budgeting is not a one-time event.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
Got it.
You need to make it a part of your regular business operations.
Right.
You need to review it and adjust it regularly.
Uh-huh.
And you need to make sure that you're using it to make informed decisions about your business.
I like it. So it's not just about crunching numbers.
No,
It's about using those numbers to make your business better.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to add before we move on?
Well, I just want to say that Tony Bela is going to be teaching all of this and more
Oh, wow.
at CharTec Academy.
Okay.
So if you're interested in learning more about budgeting and how to implement it effectively in your MSP,
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out CharTec Academy.
Wait, so our listeners can actually go and meet Tony in person?
They can.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So they can ask him questions?
Yes, they can ask him
To
questions.
get personalized
They
advice?
can get personalized advice. They can network with other MSPs.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you're serious about budgeting,
Yeah.
CharTec Academy is the place to be.
I think that this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more to cover right
We
now.
do. Okay.
Let's take a quick break.
Uh-huh.
And when we come back,
Yeah.
we'll delve even deeper into Tony Bela's world of budgeting.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so we're back, and we're talking all things budgeting with Tony Bela. And now I'm even more intrigued about CharTec Academy.
It is a really cool opportunity.
It is. Tell me more.
So it's an academy designed for MSPs
Okay.
who want to grow and scale their business.
Okay.
And they offer both online courses and in-person events.
Okay, so there are a lot of different ways that you can learn.
Exactly. And the in-person events are really cool because you can actually meet Tony Bela. Oh, wow.
Face to face.
So it's not just like a webinar or a, online course.
No. It's like you're in the room with him. You can ask him questions. You can get personalized advice.
That's great.
You can network with other MSPs.
Yeah.
So it's a really valuable experience.
So what kind of topics does he cover at these events?
Well, in addition to budgeting, he also talks about financial forecasting, which is really important for making those informed decisions about the future of your business.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't just plan for today. You have to look ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he talks about pricing strategies.
No, pricing.
How to price your services competitively
Yeah.
while still ensuring profitability.
That is the million-dollar question.
It is.
I feel like I'm always trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a constant challenge for MSPs.
What else?
And he talks about cash flow management.
Oh, cash flow, super important.
Essential.
Even if you're profitable, if you don't have cash, you're in trouble.
You are.
Yeah.
So Tony provides strategies
Uh,
for managing your cash flow effectively.
yeah.
And then finally, he also talks about key performance indicators, or
Yeah.
KPIs,
Okay, KPI.
which are metrics that you can use to track your progress
Right.
and make data-driven decisions to improve your MSP's performance.
Yeah, they're like a report card for your business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They tell you what's working, what's not working.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not just about budgeting. It's like running the whole business.
It is. It's all connected.
Yeah, this is great. So I imagine that after all this, some of our listeners might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now.
Budgeting can be intimidating,
It can.
but Tony has some advice
Okay.
for those who are feeling intimidated. And the first thing he says is don't try to do everything at once.
Okay. Break it down into smaller steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks,
Yeah.
and then tackle each chunk one at a time.
One step at a time.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the second thing he says is use technology to your advantage.
Okay, so find the right tools.
Find the right tools, the
Yeah.
right software
Yeah.
to help you automate the process.
Okay.
Make it easier.
Anything that can make it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, he says, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there are people out there who can help you
Right.
with budgeting. So if you're struggling,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to reach out to a financial advisor or a consultant.
Yeah, you don't have to do it alone.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's good advice. I like it. So we've talked about CharTec Academy. We've talked about some tips for those who are feeling intimidated.
Right.
Is there anything else that Tony suggests to make budgeting easier or more effective?
Well, he really stresses the importance of involving department managers in the process.
Oh, yeah.
And one way he does that
Yeah.
is by having them create wish lists.
Oh, yeah. We talked about those wish
Yeah,
lists.
those wish lists are great because
Yeah.
they give everyone a chance to identify those non-essential items
Right.
that they would like to have if the budget allows.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a brainstorming session.
It is. It gets people thinking creatively about how they can improve their department
Okay.
or how they can contribute to the overall success of the company.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good one. What else?
Well, he also talks about breaking down costs by revenue stream.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
So you can see how profitable each area of the business is.
Right. And that can help you to make decisions about pricing,
Yeah.
about resource allocation,
Uh-huh.
about which services to focus on. So
Right.
it's a really valuable exercise.
Yeah. All right, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember about Tony Bela's approach to budgeting?
I think the big takeaway is that budgeting is not just about numbers.
Oh.
It's about people.
Well, I like that.
It's about communication.
Yeah.
It's about collaboration.
Yeah. So it's like a team effort.
It is.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're ready to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
I think so too.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back. And I'm ready to hear even more about Tony Bela's budgeting wisdom. And especially, I'm curious about CharTec Academy. You've been talking about it.
Yeah. It's a great resource for MSPs.
How do they connect with Tony in the Academy?
Well, their website's a good place to start.
Okay.
It has a lot of information about their programs, their upcoming events, and they even have free resources like blog posts and webinars.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you can kind of get a feel for what they're all about.
Yeah. And then, of course, I'm sure they have social media
Yeah,
to stay connected.
And we'll make sure to include all the links in the show notes so your listeners can easily find them.
All right, perfect.
That's it.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to Tony's hybrid approach to budgeting.
Yeah.
Are there any steps in that process that you found particularly helpful?
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about those wish lists. Those are really a great way to get people thinking strategically and to prioritize their needs.
I like that too because it gives everyone a chance to say like, hey, this is what we would really like to do if we have the money.
Exactly. It's all about balancing those dreams with financial responsibility.
Yeah.
And it also helps to manage expectations.
Right.
People know that not everything's going to get funded,
Yeah.
but at least they have a chance to make their case.
Okay. And what else? What other kind of tips stood out to you?
Well, breaking down the costs by revenue stream,
Oh, yeah.
that's really powerful.
We talked about that.
Yeah, it helps you to see the profitability of each area of your business.
Right.
And then you can make smarter decisions.
Yeah. So it's not just about cutting costs. It's about making strategic investments.
Exactly.
All right. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
Really empowering. And now I'm even more interested in checking out CharTec Academy.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
It is. So if our listeners are ready to take their budgeting to the next level, I highly encourage them to connect with Tony, Bela, and CharTec Academy.
Absolutely.
And visit their website, explore their offerings, and get ready to experience the power of budgeting done right.
And until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep pushing your MSP to new heights.
That's a wrap for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.